Okay, you may have already realized that we really need something more complex than just arrays to be able to handle the data that we're going to be working with. And that's where Python dictionaries come in. So this is a Python dictionary, and you can see that it starts with start brace, ends with an end brace. Okay, and then within the dictionary, we have a label, species, colon, and then a value with the name of the species for a particular tree. And then a latitude, the latitude, a longitude, a longitude. So what dictionaries allow us to do, and they have nothing to do with like English dictionaries to look up words, it's a structure. It allows us to put different types of data together into one structure. So in this case, we can take a bunch of data for a tree that's different data, coordinates, species names, could be all kinds of information, notes on the species, measurements. We can put all that together into one object and then treat that as one thing. So if I take this, put it into Python, you can see the entire dictionary is that whole thing. Okay, now then we can move it around as one whole thing. We can treat it as one object with one variable, but whenever we need to, we can go into it and say, hey, from the dictionary entry, I want to get species or latitude or longitude. And then I can pull out the different components, different types of information from the dictionary. Now, where this really gets important is when we're looking at more complex data, and then we can do things like we can have an array of dictionaries. Okay, so here we've got a dictionary entry for one tree and then a dictionary entry for another tree. And you could have 3 of these, you could have 10,000 of them. We print the whole thing, you'll see here's the bracket that starts the array. There's our first dictionary entry. There's the end brace and the comma, and then our second dictionary entry, and then the bracket that ends the array. Okay, so that's the whole thing, and again, we can carry that around as one variable. Could have a huge amount of information in it, but whenever we want, we can go in and access that information. Now in this case, I'm using a while loop, setting up an index. While that index is less than the length of the array of dictionary entries. Okay, I'm going to loop each time through the loop. I'm going to go ahead and pull out one of the entries based on the index. So here I'm getting the first one. Then I can go into the dictionary, pull out each of the pieces I need. Then I can go get the next dictionary entry, pull out those pieces, and off we go. Now it's really important is you could do this with an array of dictionary entries. You can put dictionary entries inside of dictionary entries. You can put arrays inside of arrays, arrays inside of dictionaries. So it gives you real flexibility to be able to say I want to put in an array when I'm going to repeat the same thing over and over again. But then I can have dictionary entries to change the content, have different types of content. So 2 very powerful structures, especially when we put them together. Now, one of the reasons this is really important is because the Json Standard, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation, okay, and you do need to know that, this is notation for JavaScript, and it actually is for dictionaries and arrays in JavaScript, which JavaScript Object Notation is also known as JSON, and you'll hear that with web services, very popular. It's very popular on the web because JavaScript is the language that's used in browsers and the only programming language that's available in a browser. And if you take a look, it's very similar to the structure of a dictionary in Python. So like here's how you might get an address back from a web service in JSON, okay? But again, notice, very similar to Python. Here's an example where we might get a bunch of phone numbers in an array where each number is going to be in a dictionary entry. And then that is inside of another dictionary. Okay? So dictionary with an array in it with multiple dictionaries in it. So looks a lot like Python dictionaries, but it's actually JSON. Well, the cool thing about that is if you want to parse a JSON file, here's the code. You go ahead and just copy, paste that into here. So here's my little JSON file. Now notice It looks a lot like Python, but it's not. Okay, the format is a little bit different. There's a library called Json that allows us to take JSON that's in text. It says loads, which is kind of weird, okay? But it allows us to take JSON text like this, which is what we get from a lot of the web services now, and we can convert that right into Python arrays and dictionaries, okay? So now you can see we've got something that is just like what we had before, an array and a dictionary, end of that dictionary, start of another dictionary, end of that dictionary, and the end of the array. So this is pretty cool because this is all the parsing we need to do. And now we can go into that structure and do things like loop through the array like we did before, dumping out the information, and we're done. So this is very powerful. I'd say it's still a little new, but becoming much more common, partly because of how easy it is to parse the data as compared to like XML.